Hello everyone and welcome to Thorough Newspaper Analysis, which is presented to you by LawSikho. So today we have only one article that we will be discussing at length. It is from the Indian Express and the title of this article is Sub-categorization of OBCs, what the commission has found so far. Basically, we've also discussed this topic beforehand as well, but now we'll be talking about that the commission which was actually appointed to work in this direction, what have been the recent outcomes from this particular commission. And then we have the Newsflash column. If you're also preparing for judicial services exam, you can have a look at the lot of the courses, which is our judiciary test prep course. The link to this course is available in the description box below, and we also have free study material for you from on its landing page. You can download it as well. Also, you can enroll yourself for our courses for CLAT, All India Bar Exam, SEBI, etc. This is the multiple choice question from yesterday's discussion. Motion of thanks has to be passed by, your options are Lok Sabha only, Rajya Sabha only, both Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, or the state legislatures. You can write down your answer in the comment section below. So this is the descriptive question of the day. Discuss the constitutional validity of reservation system in India. What role do Articles 15 and 16 play in it? Basically, the center has extended the tenure of the commission to examine sub-categorization of other backward classes headed by Justice G. Rohini, and thus it is also called as the Rohini Commission. He was the former Chief Justice of Delhi High Court. Firstly, we need to understand that who OBCs are. Now, when we talk about the socially and educationally backward classes, then we've also had the scheduled castes, the scheduled tribes, and the other backward classes. So these are the other backward classes which we also call as the OBCs. Now, as compared to the STs and SCs, there have been instances that the OBCs still fall in a better situation. But it has been noticed that when it comes to the occupation, or when it comes to occupying the government seats or the government appointments presented by the central government, then even in the OBCs, there are a few selected castes that have greater privilege of getting these seats or getting these appointments, and even various classes in the OBCs are again deteriorated and they are oppressed a lot. That is why the very idea of sub-categorization within the OBCs was also brought in. Now, if in this case, you must also recall the importance of Articles 15 and 16 of the Indian Constitution, which actually empower the government. Under Article 15, Clause 3, we had it for women and children. And under Article 15, Clause 4, we have that the government can make the state can actually make special provisions for the SCs, STs, and OBCs. And similarly, if we talk about the appointment in the government sector or in the public offices, then also Article 16 Clause 4 provides that the government is empowered to make special provisions for the SCs, STs, and other backward classes. Now, that is why we have to ensure that why are we actually discussing about the subcategorization here? Basically, as we have already said, the subcategorization is meant to ensure equitable distribution of representation among all OBC communities. See, what happens was in the earlier times also, in the entire Hindu religion also, there was no culture of castes. But slowly and slowly, the caste system became very rigid, and thus in the keeping up in the hierarchy, the lower castes were the ones that were depressed and oppressed the most. A similar pattern has somewhat followed in the OBCs as well, that in the OBCs communities, there are a few castes that are still privileged, and most of them others are very downtrodden and are many a times oppressed severely. You must have also heard about the concept of creamy layer amongst the OBCs. So it was back in 1993 when the Ram Nandan Committee had presented its report and had identified the creamy layer of the OBCs. When we talk about various reservations, so a lot of reservations are not allowed and are not provided to this creamy layer of the OBCs. But keeping apart this creamy layer as well, there are a lot of instances and other castes as well which supersede the other OBC castes, and they tend to occupy the majority of the government posts. So the OBCs are granted 27% reservation in jobs and education under the central government. But only a few affluent communities among the 2,600 communities in the central list of the OBCs have secured a major part of this reservation. And that is why the need was felt that a subcategorization, a further division, or a further segregation needs to be taken place in the OBCs community, so that the real benefits can be sought to be reached to the real people who need these benefits. So basically, this committee, which is the Rohini Commission, always keep in mind that whenever there is any committee or a commission, it is mostly known by the name of the person who heads that particular committee or commission. So in this case, as it was Justice G. Rohini, so it is called as the Rohini Commission. Now, this is very important when it comes to your exam. You can definitely be asked in the prelims exam as well that the Rohini Commission was seen recently in news. What is it associated with? So it is associated with the subcategorization of OBCs. Also, it can be a good point when you can mention about it in any of your essay answers or even in the mains answer regarding Article 15 or 16. So this committee was constituted on 2nd October 2017, and the terms of reference, as in the areas or the scope of this committee where it had to discuss or work, were firstly, to examine the extent of inequitable distribution of benefits of reservation among OBCs, that what is the extent, to what extent has been the distribution inequitable in terms of the benefits that have been provided for the reservation amongst the OBCs. Secondly, work out a mechanism, criteria, norms, and parameters on the scientific basis for subcategorization, that if at all we resort to subcategorization, so what could be the right mechanism or the method to do it, on what criteria will this subcategorization work, and what norms and parameters we will be taking care of. Thirdly, identify the respective castes and communities and classify them into subcategories. So now obviously this is important, that not unless you understand who you are going to study, not unless you understand who are you working for, it will not be very feasible to actually draft any kind of policy. And that is why it is very important to understand and identify the respective castes and communities and then classify them into further subcategories. And finally, study entries in the central list of OBCs and recommend corrections. Now, as we know that even in the OBC, the center has a complete list in which the OBCs are enlisted, the various castes and communities under the OBCs are enlisted, and thus it also needs to be studied and the required changes are to be made in this direction. So if we talk about the progress and the findings till date, so on July 30, 2019, the draft report was ready. Then on January 22nd, 2020, that is just 1 year ago, the fourth terms of reference were added. This one, it was actually added back then. And the hurdles that have been faced in this direction are absence of data for various communities, and the data will be collected in census 2021. Now, as we know that the census has not taken place and it is due to be taken place in 2021. So there is a high chance that a better data would be made available after this census. Basically, census is the counting of the national population. So this will actually be able to provide better data of these various communities, and hence better conclusions and better studies can be taken forward in this area. And if we talk about the other findings, so it analyzed the data of 1.3 lakh jobs given to OBCs and admissions to the central higher education, and the results that came out were really, really surprising. So 97% of all the jobs and educational seats have gone to just 25% of all subcastes. So for example, let's say if there are 100 subcastes in the OBCs, so only 25 of those have occupied 97% of the jobs. So you can really understand the plight of other 75 castes that are there in the OBCs. This was just an example that if at all there are 100 subcastes in the OBCs, so of them only 25 are availing 97% of the jobs, and only 3% of these jobs are left for the 75 other subcastes. Then 24.95% have gone to just 10 OBC communities. Now, amongst these 25% also, some 10 OBC communities are still even more powerful. Then 37% of communities, that is 983, have zero representation. So you can see that 983 sub-communities of the OBCs have absolutely zero representation, which means that they have absolutely not been availing any kind of job benefit coming from the central government. And 994 communities have only 2.68% of the representation. So definitely you can see that there is a huge divide when it comes to this area, and thus it is very inequitable in its nature. And it is very much probably highly the need of the hour that this subcategorization takes place, and ultimately the real people who need these benefits are only given these benefits in the long run. So this is according to the group, the jobs in the group, various groups. So the current representation for Group A jobs is 16.51%. Group B, Group C. You don't really need to recall all of these facts and numbers in particular. But yes, the most of the trends should be kept in your mind. With this, let's see what do we have for news and flash today. So there was this an important term in today's newspaper called as bargi. Frequently, it has been used ahead of the West Bengal assembly elections. So basically, bargi has been a term which has been used to connote the outsiders by Mamata Banerjee government. So in the Bengali folklore and literature, this term is used as a casual reference to troublesome outsider forces. So basically, if there is any kind of outsider presence or outsider force that is causing any kind of trouble, so the term bargi is used for them. So there were actually several Maratha invasions of Bengal in the time period of 1741 to 1751, and the Bargis back then were mostly they were the cavalry men of the Maratha and Mughal armies. Cavalry men were usually they were actually those people in the army or those soldiers in the army that used to ride the horses. So all you can see over here, these are all the cavalry men. So this was all for the day. We hope it was a good session for you. Thank you so much. And if in case you wish to download the PDF of our slides, then you can please join our Telegram group. The link is there in the description.